G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach Swordplay. Hope you've all been well. Today I'm going to drop my final team reveal for 2025. Cannot believe that the season is upon us already. It's been a very long but extremely enjoyable preseason for myself. Obviously, we've done a bit of a rebranding of the channel. We're now known as Supercoach Swordplay rather than simply Supercoach with DR. We've got a great team that we've put together for 2025. More content than you can poke a stick at. I've been invited as a guest on many channels. Shout out to all the legends that have had me on their channel. We've had a heap of people on this channel. Haven't got to near what I wanted to content-wise. Didn't even get through all 18 team previews. But I think a big reason for that is obviously all the background work that went into putting together the Swordplay season guide for 2025. So again, a massive shout out to all the great content creators that helped put that together, and a massive shout out to anyone that's actually purchased the guide. Really appreciate your support, and the feedback has been phenomenal. So massive preseason to date, but this is what it's all about, putting the final side together. Now, I didn't really know how to present this. I was actually going to start with the players that I've had all the way through from the first team picker all the way up until now. But I realized that all the formatting would be out of place. For example, someone that was M7 could be now M6 or M8, and it just didn't work out. So I'm just going to go the traditional way and start from top to bottom, start off in defense, and then work my way up into the flex. Now, structure-wise, this has changed throughout the preseason. And at the end of the day, I'm not overly happy with how much I'm spending down back, but I don't feel like I've got much of a choice because the rookies or lack of rookies in the case when it comes to our defense have really dictated my structure. So let's start to lock this in. Actually, before I do, Swordplay Open League, you can see the league just on top of my head there, 503. 052 if you're interested there. Unlimited spots, and I do have spots in the open charity $50 league as well as a prison league, but you have to be very, very quick and contact me ASAP pretty much by the time this has come out. So if you're interested, I will take some late minute entries, but please make sure you're onto it as quick as you can. So let's start to actually lock in this team now. Who am I going with at D1? Well, it's a bit of a young gun, and he has not left my side all pre-season. All right, now structure-wise, I'm not overly happy with what I feel I've almost been forced into doing here. But as we always say, rookies dictate your structure. And for me, the lack of reliable defensive rookies we've got on offer this year have really put together the structure that I've got for you now. And at D1, this has not moved. From the minute the team picker opened right up until now, this man's been sitting there, and it's Harry Sheasel. I know that mid-price madness is the new meta these days, and we're going more towards that fantasy approach with our aggressive trading. But for me, we still need to pay up for quality. We need some pillars in our team, and Harry Sheasel's going to be exactly that for me. I think he's going to be Mr. Reliable, playing through the midfield now. We'll spend a little bit of time up forward. It's looking very likely that he will also obtain DPP, which is another little handy string to his bow that he'll have. But for me, I'm just after a nice 120 type average, if we can, from Harry, and just lock and load. I can sleep at night easy knowing that I've got him in my side. So Harry Sheasel's been a super easy selection for me. As I said, just has not moved. The next man actually made his way into my side pre-cyclone, and shout out to all my brothers and sisters up there in Queensland. Hope you guys are recovering all good from that. But it is a magician, Dane Zorko. Now, age says to me, go nowhere near this man. Why are you even looking to select him? It's because of his DVP. It is so juicy. It is just too hard to pass up for me. Now, last year, it was a real surprise season for me. I don't even think that Zorko himself prepared or knew that he'd be playing that attackive, defensive type role. But circumstances really meant that he was that man for the job, given the fact that Kitty was down. And he had a phenomenal season, all Australian season. Now, I'm a big believer, if he can keep his body right, and if Dr. Jim continues to do his great work up there in Queensland, that there's no reason that he can't go close to replicating what he did last year. And I want to be on him when he's got the good fixture. This is something I'm really focusing on heavily this year, is fixture and DVP. to start the season, and it's so hard to deny Dane Zorko. Now, the issue is that he's getting on in age. If he has some sort of a soft tissue injury, then we've got to trade him out. But the upside and the ceiling to Zorko is absolutely amazing. I think if I pair him with someone like a Harry Sheasel, they're going to be two players that I can just lock there and hopefully get a really nice average from, particularly to start off the season. So that's my thinking there. There's no timeline to Kitty, exactly when he's coming back. And when he does come back, well, I'm questioning how much he actually going to affect Dane Zorko's role. I'm not sure. I don't think too much. Some bonus kick-ins from time to time he'll share with the Pepsi Max King, maybe Ryan Lester, Harris Andrews type from time to time as well. But he doesn't need to rely on kick-ins. They want the ball in his hands, and he's a really attacking type player. So Zorko and Sheasel are the two big boys for me in defence. Now, who do we go with next? The player that I really wanted to select, and a player that's been in my side for a large majority of the preseason, is actually Jordan Clark. It was Jack Sinclair for a little while, but after he got injured, I just went off him. But with the way things currently sit, I need to search for a little bit more value. So Clark could come in back into the side if I make a slight restructure. But at this stage, I just don't have the room for him. And it's really disappointing because I am a huge fan of Jordan Clark. But what I've had to do is go all the way down, and help me if I've been trapped again. Help me if I've been trapped. But you know who it is. You know who it is. It's Jaden Short. Now, I don't like the pick, but I think that the potential here is too good to pass up. We know that the man has never given us 100 average before, which may be surprising to some people, but he's almost got there. He's been that 97, 98 type bloke, but never really managed to get into that triple figure magical range. But it all comes, well, it's not like it all comes down, but it's so hard to deny when Uze comes out and says that we basically want to change the way that we play our football down back, change our defensive game style. We don't want to panic. We want to slow down a little bit more. That will mean a little bit more chip, kick to kick. And with Jaden Short being the main man down there, the main distributor, no Rioli anymore, then it's just too good to pass up for me. He looked really hungry. He was demanding the football. We know what he does. He gets it. He normally kicks it long to a contest. All we need is that just to be a 50-50 contest if it's 40-plus meters, and hunky-dory, we're all good. Those little chip kicks, points add up there as well. He's the sort of bloke that will go around the back. Who knows, maybe even a cheeky goal from time to time. So for me, we just saw him play with so much freedom, and it's a scary non-own. Would I rather have someone like Jordan Clark there? Absolutely, I would. But I think that someone like a Short in for Clark is a decent enough compromise for what I want to do. And look, how many opposition teams are going to be, locking down any sort of Richmond player? Anyone in the midfield, anyone in defence? Hey, possibly if he's doing a heap of damage, but I really don't think that someone like Jaden Short or anyone on the Richmond side is going to give opposition coaches too many nightmares. So for me, the value is probably just a little bit too good to pass up. And the next bloke will be no surprise as well after his performance. It is Matty Roberts. So we were really keen on him last year, talked a heap about him in the preseason. I penned a fairly long article on him, and he's been on the watch list. Just that bloke that I still had question marks on. Is the role actually going to be there? What's Blakey going to be doing? What's McInerney going to be doing? We had Mills back in the side playing at this stage along with Errol. I wasn't quite sure what was happening with that defensive mix. But now I think I've got a fair bit more confidence with what Roberts' role is actually going to be going into 2025. And for me, that is very much that quarterback type role. And I think that Matty Roberts has some pretty high footy IQ. So after the last two games, my question would be, if you were considering Matty Roberts, what more did you want? Probably kick-ins. That's something that is certainly fair and reasonable to expect or ask for. But in saying that, he was actually the receiver on a few times as well. I think that if you're looking at this from glass half full, he doesn't necessarily need the kick-ins to score well. He's got other scoring avenues, which is something that I really like about the Roberts selection. I think that Lizard is now playing a little bit more accountable. Now, will that be the same from week to week? Not necessarily. You could have someone like McCartan that could come back that could change up that mix a little bit. But I think Roberts is that new gen type player. It seems like Cox is a real fan of him. And he's got the trust of his teammates. That damaging left foot, I really like what I see from Matt Roberts. And he's probably that mid-price option who I see as the most realistic keeper. I think that at best, he could push a top 8 average. Now, that may be asking a little bit too much from Roberts, and I'm not necessarily expecting or penciling him in to be a keeper, but I think that he's someone that's certainly got the potential to do so. And at the price, 430 odd K, I don't think we're getting too much better value elsewhere. And he can be that player for me that can just play that role until I've got the chance to potentially luxury upgrade if I really need to. So Matty Roberts, I'm really happy with him, and he's already got that score locked to his system. Remember, it's not going to count towards total score, we know this, but it will towards his break even and his first price rise. So that's really handy as well. The other bloke that I'm going to put next to him is Harry Perryman. Now, Perryman's been in my side for probably the last month. I don't think he was in not my last one, but my team reveal before that. He pretty much was straight afterwards. So always been really, really highly on the watch list. But for me, it's about that role. Now, I don't want to be disrespectful when I say this, but for me, he's that poor man's Josh Dunkley type pick. I think he's got the same defensive values as someone like a Dunkley. Doesn't mind doing the hard work, putting his team first, getting his hands dirty, tackles well. I think that he can provide, he can firstly get a rookie off field for us. And I'm not a fan, as you know, of the defensive rookies that we've got on option this year. And he can also give us a decent enough on-field average for him to just stay in the side until we've got the opportunity just to move him on. He's almost guaranteed to get that DPP as well. So you look at someone like a Sheasel and a Perryman. They're both playing in the midfield, and Sheasel a bit up forward, as we know as well. So that's another thing I like about the pick. And I think that if you look at his game last week, had a really decent score. Well, when we say really decent, mid-90s, that's okay. But keep in mind, once Dacos was off, he plugged a little bit of a hole for them. And usually I think a large majority of the time that he did play down back last week in that last quarter, he would be spending in the midfield. So I think there's some more meat on the bone there. We've talked about averages at GWS in similar roles. He's now got the opportunity to be in the best 22 each week, one of their first selected midfielders, and has that defensively, that sort of defensive midfield role. And that's something I do like about Perryman as well. So can do the job for now, I think anyway, and then we'll look to move him on. I don't see Perryman as a season-long keeper. Absolute best case scenario, and I wouldn't complain given the fact I'm starting him, but realistically, I'll be looking to eventually move him on. All right, so now we do get into the rookies. I'm not going for anyone around the 200 to 300K range like your Logues or your Blights. I've decided to go against that, go with these 5, and then get into the rookies. Who I'd really like to go with is my old mate, Jacko Pryor. And I think he's probably the best option for me here, but you can't have everyone. And I've actually had to skimp a little bit here. I may try to get the coin available to push this position up again, but just for now, it is Benny Patton. Now, am I wrapped with a Benny Patton pick? No, I'm not. If I look back to the game last week, he was pretty well beaten. Moore kicked 2 on him. Then they moved, I think it was Newcombe onto him, a little bit of Weddle towards the end, which is a bit of an unfair matchup. But he did still manage to score pretty well with that 67. We know that Cunningham's coming back. That is a bit of a concern. But when we look at other players we've got selecting our backline as well, not too many of them come without red flags or concerns. Now, what I like about Patton is the fact that he is a mature age player. He's made his way into a grand final side from last year, and he's got defensive forward status. And Worst case scenario, if I need to make another bit of a mini restructure here, if the defensive rookies go down, if we see what happened last year, Caulfield, Gibcus, Reid early on, then we could be in a fair bit of trouble in our defensive line. So what this will potentially allow me to do is even get Patton into the forward line, work some DPP magic around the forward line in the midfield, and then invest even more heavily into the back line if needed. So I like that defensive forward status that he's got there. Apart from that, I don't like a heap else about the pick, and I don't like the fact I'm paying up a little bit more, but beggars can't be choosers at the moment. I think that he's a pretty realistic option. Am I actually going to have him on field? I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'll look at matchups and all that sort of business. But the next bloke, Zach Reid, some people are calling this guy our rookie savior. Can you believe, particularly after what happened last year, his durability history, that this is a bloke that we are literally all relying on this year to just plug a hole for us? Zach Reid, wow, we know that the talent's there. We know that the scoring potential is there for a key position type player, but geez, we're going to be nervous if we've got him on field. In saying that, he has had a flawless preseason, touch wood to date, and I know that Essendon fans, as well as Supercoach fans and general AFL fans, have pretty high hopes for this young man. So fingers crossed he can stay on the park. I think if he's likely named, as he will be, unless injury strikes late come round one, that we've all got to select him. He's one of those blokes that I think is just going to be an easy pick for us. So not much discussion needed there. Just a bit of crossing your fingers and praying that he actually stays healthy because, yeah, really talented young bloke. And I've actually passed on Leak for now. I've got sub vibes from him. We know that Tommy Green's coming back. I've got my eye on another GWS rookie, potential in the forward line. We'll get to him a little bit later. So I'm passing on Leak for now, and I am getting on Luke Trainer. Now, we will know nice and early if Trainer's a sub, and if he is named the sub, and I may just switch back to Leak. We'll see what happens there. But with Trainer, a big reason why I'm keen on Trainer is because of the conversation I had with his godfather, Come It Down. Shout out to you, brother. Very, very early on in the preseason. And this was when Trainer wasn't even getting spoken about. Ab said to me that if there's one bloke that I'm super happy that Richmond got their hands on, it's this bloke, Luke Trainer. I think that he could be the best one out of the lot. He said this nice and early on. In the Pracky games, it didn't look like he was actually going to be named for round one, possibly the sub, or he may have had to bide his time, but he has been confirmed to debut in round one against the Blues. So that's good enough for me at this stage. Really talented type player, will put his body on the line, courageous type as well. So he can just sit there at D8 for now. So I suppose the structure I'm going with here is that 2-3-1, with the two primos being Ishizu Zorko, the three mid prices, which I'm not overly happy with this, but short Roberts Perryman, and they've gone with Patton Reid and Trainer, with, you know, an ideal situation being having Pryor in probably Patton's position and a Jordan Clark in Short's position. But as we said, you simply cannot select them all unless you're a Pokemon player. I'm not a huge Pokemon player, but that is the defensive line. We'll move on to the midfield now, and let's talk about some of the big dogs. Now, this M1 position, I did not think would move. For the last, 4 or 5 years, it's been the Bont, lock and load, end of discussion. However, it's not my choice this year. We cannot select the Bont because he's looking to be back around 5, 6, 7. We'll see what happens with the Bont. Zach Butters, the next man down, the next obvious selection. Also, Gonski, not a starting selection for us. I'll skip Jockey for a sec. We'll go to Sam Flanders, not available round one. You've got Nick Dacos. Wasn't he looking sublime in that first quarter against the Bedford tag, but injured, don't know what's happening with him. He's had a bit of an issue in the preseason, so I'm just not willing to go there. I know that probably half the comp will, but just not for me. Isaac Heaney, terrific year from him last year, but I'm not paying up that much for him. Trelaw's injured at the moment, can't go there. Sarong seems like the safe selection. So coming into his prime, got a great fixture, terrific buy, premium numbers, particularly in the first half of last year. A captaincy option seems like a pretty safe and reliable selection. Zach Merritt, well, with what's happened with the fixture now, not really, because he's playing that round 25 games, we call that. And then you got Josh Dunkley, again, a pretty reliable selection. Maybe some questions around his ceiling. So that top 10, usually we've got so many blokes that we can go for. But for me this year, the options do feel limited. Now, when I've put together my midfield this year, and I've used this analogy before, but the way I'm going to try my best to explain it is like selecting a private school uniform. So Maxi started at high school this year, going really well, which is good to see. But we're going to use his uniform as a bit of an example here. So the big thing you need to buy, the most expensive thing you need to buy, and it's got to be quality, is the school blazer. So I need a blazer in my midfield, and that blazer for me is going to be Shocky Neal. Pre-Cyclone, it was a choice or a decision between Chocky and Zorko, and I lent Zorko's way. However, now that that's all changed, and this man's going to be up and playing, hopefully for the first 16 rounds straight, I just cannot look past him. I can't get Bont. I can't get Butters. So I'm getting my man, Shocky Neal. Now, he's obviously on the wrong side of 30, but let me tell you, he is far from done. I've heard a little bit of talk. Some people have DM'd me and said, DR, what's all this business about Lachie Neale handing over the keys? I think he said in an interview that he's getting to that stage in his career where he's willing to step back a little bit and give some more responsibility to other players in the midfield. But let's get real here. We heard this a little bit in the last preseason before that, a little bit half back possibly here and there. Nah, simply didn't happen. Now, although Lachie is now 31, he's not 38, 39. He's not Michael Tuck. He's not Brent Harvey. He is still absolutely peachy, ready to go at the moment. He is a gun of the competition, Lachie Neale. He is nowhere near past his prime. He's just come from winning a premiership medallion, achieved that goal, very, very close to winning the Norm Smith as well. And keep in mind, leading into that game, he was buggered. He was sore. Now, although, yes, I do agree that there will be a little bit of a change at the guard with the Ashcroft boys getting a bit more time, that's not going to affect Lachie Neale. I think he's the least versatile midfielder that we've got out of all the big boys. And where else is he going to play? You've got the Ashcrofts that can play wing, that can play half forward. You've got Dunkley that can play more of a forward role if needed, but plays a different role anyway to Neale in the midfield. You've got McCluggage, who is all-Australian caliber wingman, can be really damaging up forward as well. So for me, don't worry about Chocky not spending as much time or enough time in the midfield. He is absolutely going to be there at the coalface. Now, can he get his body right for the whole season? We've seen some niggles recently in the last couple of years. Look, I think that he can. If I want Lachie Neale, I want him at the start of the season. I don't want to be trading into him. I would much rather start him. And remember, he's got a really nice start to the season. So Sydney, hey, he may get a bit of a Jordan tag, but remember that Jordan didn't start tagging day until after halftime. Was that a little bit reactive and they could get more proactive? Potentially, that may be the case, but who knows? There's no guarantee that he's going to stop Lachie and he's going to pump out, a 50 type score. But even an 80, I can live with that, because then he plays West Coast, Geelong, Richmond, hopefully a Bontless Dogs, and then Collingwood, who are notorious for giving up midfield points. Maybe not with someone like a Perriman now. That could be a role for him. But for me, it's just too good to pass up. So I'm focusing very much on that early fixture and getting him in while he can be a fantastic captain option for us. I tell you what, he's going to be a tough watch against some of these lower ranked teams. And I don't think that they're going to rest him early or anything like that, because if you think back to the way that the Lions started 2024, we did it the hard way last year, winning it from 5th. We don't want to put ourselves in a position early where we have to fight so hard just to make the 8. We want to put ourselves in a nice position so we can potentially cruise a little bit more around that mid stage, potentially later stage of the season. So for me, Chocky, in my side. The next bloke has been in my side for, has it been all the preseason? I think it pretty much has. It is Andy Brayshaw. I'm a massive fan of Andy. Now, we know that last year he did start off a little bit slowly. We all know that he was dealing with a little bit of injury. But keep in mind that he really did crawl to the bye as well with a couple of mid-80 scores leading into the bye. I think that he was buggered and he just needed a little bit of a rest. But what we saw after that from rounds 15 to 24 was 7 scores of 125 plus. In the same time, well, if we even go back earlier to that, from rounds 10 all the way up to 24, Caleb Sarong only put in 1 score of 125 plus. And there were reasons for that, a couple of tag games, and that's what I like about Brayshaw. In my opinion, he's not going to be the number 1 tag target at his club. And he's a bloke with the talent to be a number 1 midfielder at many clubs in the competition. So the fact that I don't think he's even going to cop that much heat, and I think most of that heat will go Sarong's way, that is so much more meat on the bone for me. Got a great inside game, got a great outside game. And don't forget, this bloke is a previous MVP, absolutely coming into his prime. Did he get knocked around a little bit with the gaff incident? Yeah, but he's had plenty of time to get over that, and he's proven that he can play some really, really nice football for us. So with his good fixture and with his bye, I think that he's going to be a really, really nice selection for us. He could go Sarong here, and I'm absolutely happy with that. When I went through the top 10 most expensive mids just before, he was one of the safer options there and one of the options that I did like the most. But I think if I can save a little bit and get his teammate named Andy Brayshaw, who won't cop as much heat. And hey, you could use the same argument on me and say, well, why are you selecting Neil? Why don't you select Josh Dunkley? I just think that Neil's ceiling over Dunkley is probably what I would prefer there. And Dunkley is a very selfless player. And I think there may be times where he just does not care about his own game. And his focus is going to be on limiting the best midfielder from the opposition side. So I don't think Brayshaw's ever going to be doing anything like that. So that is a little bit of a difference there for me, Brayshaw, compared to someone like Dunkley, who are those number 2 cogs in their respective midfield. So with his endurance, with his tank, I think that's going to lend really well. And I'm hoping that we can see even increase in his tog. So Andy is there for me at the moment. Now, the next slot has been Connor Rozee, who I would love to fit in this midfield. And I've actually had him over Brayshaw, and that's been part of when I've had Clark over Short, with a couple of other changes as well. But I've decided to not start Rozee at the moment. That is really tough. Maybe a late change, but not at the moment. The other pod that I was so massive on, I was so big on, that I just can't, coming off a calf, soft tissue injury, is Ed Richards. Now, he should be fit. He should be available. He should be ready. There's no bonds. It looks like it's a perfect scenario for him, but I just cannot do it. You know, I've got my limits when it comes to preseason injuries. And without having seen him play proper match in the preseason, I'm just not willing to do it. And it kills me because Ed Richards, I felt like I was on him before anyone was. So that's frustrating there. So no Rozee and no Ed Richards. The man I'm going with in this slot instead is, I went with Clary. It's Clayton Oliver. Now, I'm not going to discuss him because he is just the easiest lock for us. You don't need to discuss him. You just don't need to discuss him. So you've got Lachie Neale, who's that really, really nice brand new blazer. You've got Andy Brayshaw, who's that beautiful, nice, clean, crisp shirt. And then you've got Clayton Oliver. Now, what's Clary? Clary for me, and this is no disrespect whatsoever, because you need a nice set of wheels. You need a nice pair of shoes. Clary for me is like the Doc Martin find. The Doc Martin find in the op shop, though, because he's that fallen premium. Doc Martens, as we know, are absolute quality, best of the best. But we have been shopping at the op shop because we've already spent all this money on a blazer and a new shirt that we do need to skimp somewhere, but we still want quality, and that's what Clary is going to provide us. Now, I've obviously skipped on Will Day for now. and I'm a fan of Will Day. He's already got that big score locked in his system, but I'm going to skip him, and I'm going to go to Adam Shearer. Now, Shearer, I've been on for a little while now. I've chatted to Janath a lot about this selection, and 447k for a bloke that has started over 600k and averaged 108 plus before is just too good to pass up. We watched him play in the last Community Series game and just really took the P155 in 60% TOG. He is currently the number 2 cog in that midfield. He's not going to cop the heat, so we know that Cripper is going to be the main tag target. We know this. So I think that Adam Shearer is absolutely going to fly under the radar, and he's got a phenomenal start to the season as well, playing the lower ranked sides. For me, he is a realistic and legitimate VC option for us. I actually have him planned and pegged when I'm looking at my first 10 weeks with the players I've got in my side currently. We know that there'll be hopefully some big boys that will enter during that stage as well. But Shearer for me is someone that I've got enough faith in with that early fixture to actually chuck the VC on him. Captain, maybe not, but definitely VC. And if he stays fit, best case scenario, I think he can do around top 10 for midfield average. That is absolute best case scenario. And all I need him to do is really perform for 8, maybe 12 weeks. If he could get up until his bye, I would be more than happy with that. Give me a 105 up until round 12, and I'm going to call that a win. I'm going to be really, really happy with that. Can he potentially do more? I actually think he can. Anything less, I'd be a little bit disappointed, but there is absolutely meat on the bone with this pick, and I'll be selecting Adam Shearer. No worries about that. All right, the next bloke. Now, it pretty much got to halftime of the Giants-Collingwood game on the weekend, and I sent through to the little message group that we've got. This bloke has done enough, absolutely locked into my side. You know who it is. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. It is Finn Callaghan. This bloke was absolutely mesmerizing. Speed, strength, skills, work rate, scoreboard impact. What more could you want from this bloke? Now, St Kilda are crazy. We all know that the Saints are crazy. I love you, Jono. I love you, Roscoe. You know that. But they've thrown out some big cash in the past. And did I have one of the biggest laughs I've had in a while when I heard about the type of money they were throwing at Finn Callaghan, allegedly throwing that much money at Finn Callaghan. After watching him on the weekend, though, I thought, Sainers, you are absolutely on the money here. Now, we know there are some potential red flags. Look, he's never done it before. There's only 5 teams that he's scored 100 plus on. And this isn't averaging. This is just scored 100 plus on. We know that Tom Green is currently not in the side. Depending on who you ask, that is a negative to the pick. Others say that is a bit of a positive to the pick because potentially Tom Green can help to farm it out to Finn, who can do a bit more damage on the outside and actually save his body from getting as banged up as what it would or is getting without Tom Green. I want everyone to keep in mind that this is simply not a selection based off what he did last week. He's been on my watch list for a long time. After speaking with my man Dan, aka Frio Tragic, shout out to you, legend. He's been talking about Finn Callaghan and his potential for a very long time, given the fact he lives up there, lives up in Bondi, and here's a lot of the news coming out of the Giants and the Swans. But as I mentioned before, he's only scored 100 plus against 5 teams. He plays 4 out of those teams in the first 7 weeks. He's already got that monster score locked in. That 140-odd score is locked into his system. Now, here's a good bailout plan, and I get this. I get that for lots of people, your plan is going to be, if you're Oliver's, Days, Jerry's, whoever it is, whichever midfielder, mid-price midfielder that you select, or it doesn't even have to be a midfielder, use DPP, it could be a defensive mid-pricer, whoever. Whichever one of these guys don't work out, then he's a really good backup plan. We know that the price doesn't go up until after that early buy, so I can see why it makes sense. I can absolutely see that. But I'm going to look at it from a bit of a different point of view, and I'm going to say that I don't want to have to be forced into trading in Finn Callaghan. I want to actually jump the gun and start this man when lots of people will potentially look to trade him in. It is so dangerous planning on trading in players. Do you want to see another week? Well, I don't need to, I don't think. I've already watched him really carefully for 2 weeks. Obviously, the Pracky game, then the Community Series game. Well, it's been 3 weeks, hasn't it? And then obviously in the official round 1 game. And he just has not disappointed me and really has not put a foot wrong. So I really don't feel that this is a reactionary pick. And for the people that are planning on getting him in, it may not be as easy as that. And if I've already got him locked in there, then I can make other moves when other people are stressing about getting him in. Do we call him a must trade in if he goes 115 next week, 120 next week, even 100? Is that enough? You've seen 140, then another ton. Is that good enough for you? I don't know what your threshold's going to be, but I think for most coaches in the competition, if he's got a 140 and a 120 plus locked into his system already, then surely you've got to jump on, and you may even feel a little bit pressured to jump on. Hey, if you're not going as mid-pricey here and your other mid-prices are actually performing and you're happy with your Uber premiums, then what do you actually do there? So I'm a fan of Callaghan. I know he's not for everyone. And if you don't want to run with him, I'm so okay with that. This is just a pick that I'm a fan of. And it could burn up in my face, but for now, that's what I'm running with. So we're going Neil Brayshaw, the 3 mid prices there, and then I'm going to start filling this out with your rookies. So we've got Nathan O'Driscoll, who I think is a pretty obvious one. We've got my man Levi Ashcroft. You've got Sartis, who'll be the third bloke that we'll have on field there. So it was really a choice out of 4 blokes for me, and that was O'Driscoll, Ashcroft, Sartis, and Finn O'Sullivan. So he is the big omission here. And I hope it doesn't hurt me like McKercher hurt me at the start of last year, but you can't select them all. And I suppose I'm going with blokes who I think have more of a contested part to their game. So O'Driscoll, obviously being that more mature type body, will play in a wing, but obviously will get some CBA time, particularly given the fact that Young won't be featuring early. You've got Ashcroft, who has a fantastic, almost a perfect, I'd say, mix of inside and outside. And then you've got Sartis, who's going to be playing majority inside, you'd hope anyway, with that CBA role. That's probably the difference for me. You could say that O'Sullivan could be a little bit cleaner, but O'Sullivan's never really been known to be an accumulator. However, if he plays that half-back role at North Melbourne, he's got no choice but to be an accumulator. We'll see what happens there. He could be one to burn me, but at the same time, I feel like I can do a bit of an easy pivot between these 3. So O'Driscoll, shout out to Damo. He's been huge on O'Driscoll for a long time, even before the Pracky matches. He said to me, DR, get him into your side. He'll be a lock for 22. And that's absolutely been the case. So shout out to you, mate. Ashcroft, now I'm not going to guarantee that he's not going to be a sub. We've got a super talented side, and must admit, a little bit flat before recording this. News came through that Link McCarthy had done another ACL. Man, he is such a ripping human as well. Like, I know Link, he's such a wonderful, wonderful bloke. I feel for him. I feel for him. Just had no luck. Even when you look back at, his days at Geelong, just couldn't get on the park. Such a lovely, talented type player that won't feature again for us this year. So shattered about that. But again, that's probably more opportunity for Levi, although I think that Link was really fighting for a spot anyway, particularly emergence of someone like Kyle Lohman. But I think that Ashcroft does have good forward craft as well. And what we saw on the weekend last week, is that he doesn't need a heap of CBAs to actually score well. When he had 0% in CBAs in the last quarter, that's when he did most of his damage on the Supercoach scoreboard anyway. So I'm a fan of Levi, but with our talented list and our depth, there's a chance that he could see the vest from time to time. But I don't think it's going to be a constant thing with Levi. He's just too good for that. Now we're going to round out the bench with Mitch Nevitt, who I think is a pretty obvious selection here. Looking to get more of a CBA role this year at the Cattery. Who knows what Chris Scott is going to do to us there. But fingers crossed, he's going to be one of the main men there. And at the price, mature body, I've seen enough. I've seen enough from him so far. Now, the next bloke, I really don't know if he's going to get up. And if he doesn't, I've got a couple of options here. The easy option is to go to a Boxall, a Hasty. There'll be someone else that comes up. I think I may go close to even having enough money for a Murphy Reed from Freo. We'll see what happens here. But even if he doesn't play round one, we know that Hewitt's going to play early. And if I select him here, it gives me a little bit more flexibility to the side, given the fact I've got some DPP in my midfield. And it also gives me the opportunity to potentially loop in round one. I don't want to go with a loophole type player, but this bloke could actually give me the opportunity to loop in round one if I get the VC selection right, which will most likely be Adam Chera in the first game against the Tigers, and hopefully come in the week after next, whenever he's fully healthy. So that's still a play with Elijah Hewitt for me. But, if he's fully fit, then he's automatic lock for best 22. And we're hoping and thinking midfield role within that as well. So we'll see what happens with Hewitt, but that could be potentially a bit of a sneaky play for me. And then the last bloke we've got here is father-son. Make sure I get the right one. Lucas Camporelli, not Benny Boy. He's been confirmed to debut on the weekend as well. He's going to play on a wing. Some were saying to me, was it Janath? I don't want to say it was Janath, but a Carlton supporter was saying to me, it must have been in a DM, that he's actually preferred potentially over someone like a Sam Doherty. So they really rate the young man down at the club. And yeah, it looks to have a bright future. So surprised that he made his way in this early, but he has for us. And at 113K, I think we've just got to take that while it's on offer. So yeah, the structure here is that 2-3-3. And then I've got Nevitt on the bench, who's a little bit more expensive. Foss is the big one here that I have anti-potted. Hopefully it doesn't hurt me too much, but that is the midfield. Alrighty, the big boys in the ruck. Now, bang, bang. I would so love to do that. Maxi and Sherry, just lock them in. R1, R2. No worries. You can sleep at night. Unfortunately, I don't have the coin to go both of them. Now, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think that the almost most sensible selection is to go Max Gawn, particularly with that early fixture. The Giants game, that's going to be the hardest watch ever if you don't own Max Gawn. He could legitimately go 250 on Lockie Keith or whoever they chuck in the ruck, given the fact that Big Kiss is down. It is so scary. In saying that, though, at his age, I've got your Zorks. I've got your Lockie Neals. Can I get another 37, 38-year-old, whoever old Max Gawn is? Now, he's a different beast, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think that I can. Am I going to go with Tristan Sherry? Yes. I can't deny the big man Sherry. He has been in my team, like Harry Sheasel, from the minute the team picker opened. And you could call it FOMO from owning him at any stage last year. But rather than pay up for a 37-year-old bloke, I'm going for someone who is in their absolute prime. I'm not changing now. I've got faith that he's going to be R1 by the end of the season. If it's not a tap to advantage for him in the middle, it's a follow-up tackle. It's a contested possession. He's always doing something. Sherry is one of these ruckmen that have so many avenues to score. He can even go up forward, hit the scoreboard from time to time, a really strong sort of lad, so he can bring down a nice contested mark. He's like an extra midfielder. He is, I found last year, an absolute dagger in the heart, week upon week. He's the sort of bloke that can be a really reliable captain, vice-captain option, and certainly someone that I've got in my plans as well, like a Lockie Neal, like a Zorko, like a Brayshaw as well. I think he's got the potential to really hurt non-owners. And if you get on him with that VC or captain in the right week, he can absolutely skyrocket you. So there's not too many head-to-head ruck matchups that do worry me. Some people have said there's no way you can go with Sherry when you look at Gawn's early fixture, but that's not going to worry too much with me, I don't think. His floor is obviously that tackle count along with his contested possession rate, and I'm hoping that with an improving midfield around him, it can also help his game as well. So Sherry for me is staying in my side and hopefully going to be a nice regular VC or captain choice. The only other option, realistic option, apart from Max Gawn for me, is the Nank, and he could be a really nice pod at 2%. But at this stage, I'm not willing to go away from the crowd. And I'm actually going to go with my original setup from the team picker, which is Sherry and De Koning. And that is very rare when it comes to my rucks. But put simply, his high ownership and generational ability, according to the professor, make him close to a must-have. He is a scary non-own, and he proved exactly what he could do, and that was score 30 points in 3 minutes in his last match against the Giants. Now, we know that Kizza again went down during that match, and there was basically no competition. But look at his time on ground. Look at his score. Tell me what he can do in 75% TOG. It's crazy, and it's extremely, extremely scary. Now, we know the huge red flag to this selection is obviously Pito. We know he's not available to start off the season. Potentially may come in, but if he's playing well enough, TDK, I don't think they're going to mix up that big man structure too much. I don't know, and I'm going to give you no guarantees, but I think given the fact that we've got the flex position, we've got someone, and if this is early on the season, like Lloyd Meek, who's priced right around what De Koning is, I think we've got some exit options with this selection as well. So, look, for me, I would love to be a little bit more experimental here and go away with the crowd, but you've just got to go with the crowd sometimes. And I don't think that De Koning is a type of antipod to muck around with, because if you get it wrong, I think it's really, really going to hurt you. If you select him, I don't think that there's too much downside. I think at absolute worst, without Pito, he'll average what he's priced at. That's absolute downside. I think he's going to do a lot more, but yeah, I'm not willing to risk not selecting him at the moment. And the other one here, it's Harry Boyd. Now, I haven't really looked too much at your Archer Reeds and the other cheap options that we've got, because I'm hoping that he's going to be selected. He's at 99K, and I think he's a bit of a gift for us. Still don't know exactly what's happening with Rowan Marshall at the moment as well. So for me, not getting fancy with anyone else, just locking in Harry Boyd, and hopefully we don't even need to use him. He can just make some nice cash for us. Alrighty, on to the forwards. Now, I do apologise. I'm going to be pretty boring here. There was one stage during the preseason where I was highly considering anti-potting Horn Francis, but with Butters out now, with what we know, information's changed. There is absolutely no world where I anti-pod this man now. He's an absolute lock and load, and every team, in my humble opinion, should be running with him. Too risky, like someone like De Koning, to anti-pod. The difference being, I think he's a clear F1 for us at the moment with the current play pool we've got, and simply put, a no-brainer. I would love to have Isaac Rankin, and I have run with him at stages, but just don't have the coin to do it at the moment. I'm going with former Supercoach royalty in Jack McRae, and then it's actually going all the way down to Caleb Daniel. Now, I don't feel like McRae and Daniel need any discussion. He was back to his piggy ways on the weekend. This is Jack McRae, or last weekend. And it just reaffirmed for all of us that this man, when given opportunity, can get his hands on the football. That's what he's done for years and years and years. And that's why he is already sitting well and truly in the Supercoach Hall of Fame. So no discussion needed there. Daniel as well, never ever reached the heights of someone like a Jack McRae, but in that role at North Melbourne, distributing off halfback, getting some kick-ins, it is just way too good to pass up. So no discussion needed there. And realistically, I see these three as absolute season-long keepers. It's tough because you don't know if you're getting your Petrackers, your Rowan types, a couple of other names I've heard floated, which I won't mention now. But there could be some other options here which push them down the pecking order slightly. But we need to look at how things sit currently. And I'd be absolutely shocked if these three blokes here did not end up in the top 6 for averages. All right, now, I suppose what I do need to mention is the fact that I have faded Baz for now, and I have faded Riley Sanders. I don't necessarily want to fade Baz in particular. It does worry me slightly, but I don't think, in saying that it worries me, that he's going to kill me or do too much damage. And hey, if he does, then I've got Oliver, I've got Shearer, I've got Callaghan. There's some pretty easy swaps there, particularly given the fact that he's got mid-forward DPP as well. So I don't feel that Baz is going to really hurt me that much early on, and I can pivot to him if needed. And Riley Sanders, we were talking about this on the potty. I just didn't feel that he took the opportunity that was presented to him. We know that Bond's out. We know that Richards has been out. And hey, it's like, here are the keys to this midfield. Here are the keys for your increased CBA rate. But he just didn't impress me and simply didn't do enough. You look at Finn Callaghan, who's been given much more opportunity now. He just did so much more. You look at someone like Will Day. He did so much more. There were just more mid-prices that impressed me, and that in itself pushed Sanders down a little bit. Now, could I get him in? Absolutely, I could. But there's other players that I'm prioritizing at the moment. James Peatling's someone else who I'd also love to have, and I view him a little bit differently. Some people have completely wiped him, but I've still got him very much on my watch list. You just can't fit them all in. I've got other priorities, as I said. So let's get to this next selection, and it's actually going to be Hugo Garcia. So I actually owned this bloke last year. Don't know what happened to him. Went to the Amazon or something, did Hugo. But for me, it's the CBA role that he's been playing basically all of the preseason. When Mateus went down, this is going to sound bad when we say we lick our lips. We are shattered about Mateus, and he'd be absolutely sitting here now if he was fit and healthy. But we ask ourselves, well, who's going to step up? Who's going to get that opportunity? And it looks as if for now, Hugo Garcia has been the one that's been given that opportunity. Now, what we really like about Hugo is his contested possession rate and his willingness to tackle. He is a defensively minded beast. I suppose the downside to that is he's got a limited outside game. But with those contested possessions, he doesn't necessarily need to accumulate too much in order for that score to rise. He's not the cleanest user, but again, I think that's married up with that contested possession rate that you see with him. He's very hard-nosed. And look, the slight concern for me, apart from the fact that we've never seen him do it before, and there's other players that might be able to step up, your Windhager and players like that into the role, is the fact that we only saw him with 64% TOG. Now, is this an engine thing? Is this the fact that they wanted to give other blokes more of a run? I'm not too sure. Does this mean his potential sub-material? I don't have the answers to this, but I think I'm willing to risk it given the fact that it looks like he's got a pretty solid CBA role. So there are red flags with the pick, but if we look at the price, we're not spending up on your Cherries, your Callaghan types, even your Jack McRae types. We're spending under 250K, and that's good enough for me at this stage. Now, I've gone right down to 120K rookie here. There's been times where I've had Tom Lynch in the side, but for now, and I'm a little bit surprised at myself for this, but where is he? Sam Powell-Pepper. Now, the thing that keeps coming to my mind is leadership group. I believe there's 4 or 5 in their leadership group, and Powell-Pepper's one of them. They rate this bloke highly. Now, originally, before I heard that, I wasn't too interested. But again, I wasn't really looking at someone at this price point. It was pretty much Daniel at F6, F5 at times, and I had your Baz, I had your Sanders, and your Mateus's back in the day. I've had your Rankins in there as well. So part of my lack of interest has been the fact I haven't really been looking at this price point. But the fact that he's in that leadership group says to me that surely he's going to be playing week upon week. He's got a role every week in the best 22, and you're really going to be subbing your leaders. Surely your leaders are the type of blokes that you want towards the end of the game when blokes are running out of energy, and you want those blokes that are going to give their absolute all. And I think Pau Pepper is a bloke that has proven over the years that he gives his all. And I think that's probably a big reason why he's in that leadership group. His teammates know what they're going to get from this man. Now, I don't know exactly what I'm going to get from a Supercoach point of view, but what I do know is in the past, he has averaged 74 plus in 4 seasons. And that is absolutely good enough for me. If he can do that for me, playing this role on field for, I don't know, however long we need him, then this is a massive win for us. It would be even better if we're getting him at 140, 150. But given the fact it's Sam Pau Pepper, he's been in the system for a long time now. He's a mature body. He's in the leadership group. It looks like he's got a solid enough role. Hit the scoreboard, a couple of times. I think it was 2 goals too in that last community series game as well. I just think that there are too many ticks at the price for me, and with the structure that I need to run, for me not to go with Sam Pau Pepper. So he is there for me now. 82% TOG as well in the last game. That's a good sign for me, particularly coming back from a bit of a major injury. So Sammy, 2 thumbs up and in my side just for now. The next bloke who I've got in, I don't want to pay up for. I don't want to pay this much, but what I'm paying for with this selection is job security, a bit of entertainment, and some DPP. It is Isaac Kako. I'll tell you what, as an Essendon supporter, you would be rapt having this bloke in your side. He's going to be super exciting. Oozes X Factor. Should have had 5 snags. 4, though, we're still not complaining with. Very, very smart type footballer. Keep in mind, he's playing that small forward type role. There's going to be games where he gets his 4. There's going to be games where he gets absolute duck eggs, and we're going to be getting a 40, 50 type score. But that's what we expect, and that's the nature of playing a small forward role, particularly as a first-year player. But they highly rate him. We know he's a bit of an NGA pick for them, so he is locked into their best side, best 22 each week if fit. May need a rest, who knows, but he gives them so much energy down there. He gets the boys up and about, and I don't think he's someone that needs a heap of the football to be super damaging. Remember, I think it was his first touch was a really nice goal assist, or at least a really nice kick inside 50. That goes to show that, hey, the young man loves kicking a goal, but he's not afraid to give it off to another teammate in a better position. I think that shows a little bit of maturity. Hey, I want him going for the goal. But that is a good trait that he has. So Kako at 150, not fantastic, but I think he'll play week upon week, and that's probably the most important thing for me at this stage. The next bloke I'm getting, and I'll probably play him on field above Kako, is Sam Davidson. Now, big shout out to my man Matty, who most of you would have seen on my Doggies team team preview in the preseason. He is absolutely the man when it comes to the Doggies, and everything that he told me about Davidson months and months back was absolutely true, and it's come to fruition. So I think I've said this a fair bit, but very, very quickly, he said that he was one of the best endurance runners at the club. At training, he'd see him in the defensive line, put his head down, put it up, and he's worked his way up into the forward line. That wing role is absolutely his. They've been screaming out for a long time for a reliable player just to play that role. His mature type body, we know he played more of a forward role last year in the VFL, but they like everything that they see about him. We did see in the last community series game as well that he can find the football. No problems doing that. The wing role isn't ideal for Supercoach, and there'll be certainly quarters where he won't get around it. And that is a little bit of a concern about playing him on field. But at the same time, I think that at his price, he's an absolute lock to select at least on the bench. But like me, if you're going a little bit lighter forward and you don't have the Rankin pick or even that Baz Extra Sanders type pick, then I think that he's still okay just to have on for the time being anyway. And last bloke we've got here is Connor Stone. the rookie I was alluding to from the Giants before. So Connor Stone, look, a bit of a vanilla type player, I think, but job security should be okay. He's playing a defensive role at the moment. Someone like Leak with Tom Green's coming back into the side. A little bit of a concern, I believe McMullen, they're looking to rotate through the midfield as well, so I don't think he affects Stone too much. So I think job security for the short term is okay. I wouldn't want to have him on field. I think he's going to be a nice bench option, hopefully makes our 150K, whatever it is, and then eventually look to move him on. The other good thing, and something I probably haven't touched on yet, are the early buys and best 18. I like that about Stone, given the fact that he is the only player. Well, sorry, I've got Finn Callaghan now, but he's a player that we can use as a loophole. We've also got your Sardis and your Kako, who we can use as loopholes as well. And then we've got, your Roberts, potentially Perriman, who you can use for the other weeks as well. So if I was to start someone like a Hewitt, he doesn't play round 1, but they're very confident that he probably gets up the week after. I could potentially have a loop and then he starts playing. Then we've got the 3 bye rounds. So that's for the first 4 weeks. I can use my VC if I decide to go Hewitt. But Stone will also allow me to do that. And the other thing that we need to take into account at times as well with these rookies is rookie roulette. So having some rookies from the early buys can potentially help you with a bit of rookie roulette at the same time as well. So there we are now. You'll see that I've got 268K in the bank. I wonder if you can guess who my flex is going to be. It could be, and maybe it should be, Finn O'Sullivan. Maybe it should, because that will allow me to go into the season with 60, 70K. And I've pretty much locked in who I think are close to the must-have rookies. It then also gives me the ability to then get Jackson Pryor here. So you'd probably see Patton out potentially, but you could even go out Trainer, especially if he's a sub. So that's something I could do and absolutely may do. It also gives me ways to go back up to Jordan Clark. There's other things I'd need to do, but I'd certainly have options there anyway. However, I'm not currently doing that. That's a bit of a backup plan. I'm going with the bloke who I had in flex, believe it or not, when the team picker opened up, and that is Matty Flynn. Now, it looks like, and I'm pretty confident, that he's the number 1 man at West Coast. Oscar Allen, there's a lot of talk that when he plays more football, that potentially Flynn finds his way out of the side. BJ plays a little bit more in the ruck. Look, there's potential. Who knows? But the great thing with Flynn, we do have exit plans. I've just talked about one, Finn O'Sullivan. Then you go all the way down to, Boxall, and that gives you Jordan Clark, or that gives you any other player that you're keen on. It could take me up to Rosie from Callaghan. So this flex position, I'm a huge fan of it this year, and it's a name as a position, flex. It gives me flexibility, even with someone like DeConning. If things don't work out there, Flynn goes into that R2 spot, and then you get another premium, whatever you want to do. I really like that. But with Flynn, very quickly going back to him, I think at the price, given the fact that we saw him come up against Sherry, who was absolutely no mug, and still score a 90, that's good enough for me. What did we want? 110s, 120s. Some people will just be completely against it because there has been niggles in the preseason, and I've gone against my absolute weapon in Ed Richards because of that. But I think if we compare the price, the fact that I've got him in flex, there's changes I can make there. I don't need to necessarily bring another ruckman in, so I'm not hamstringing myself in that respect. That's probably the best way that I'd sum up the flex position with Matty Flynn. So the team as a whole, if I quickly go back there, I might zoom out. I can save the team now, can't I? So here we go. The team in all its glory. We've got Sheasel, Zorko, Short, Roberts, Perriman, with Patton, Reed, and Trainer, rounding out the rookies. We've got Neil Brayshaw, Oliver, Shearer, Callaghan, O'Driscoll, Sardis, Ashcroft, Nevitt, Hewitt, and Camporelli. Now, one thing I did forget to finish off before, and I'll do that very quickly now, is the school blazer analogy or the school uniform analogy. So we had Neil as a blazer, Brayshaw as a really nice shirt. We had Oliver as the old Doc Marten shoes. For me, Chera is that really nice pair of slacks. And again, we're shopping at the op shop here, but we are shopping for absolute quality. Finn Callaghan is that nice tie, that Windsor knot tie. None of those other dodgy knots, the nice Windsor knot tie. And this is no disrespect to the rest of these blokes here, but these guys are the socks, the jocks, even nice pair of shorts for your summertime here. No disrespect. These are blokes that are essential, right? I'm not going to school without my socks and my jocks, right? These are absolute essentials. Some of you more exotics me, but not me. These are essentials, and we use the socks for a while, but unlike our blazer, we don't need them for the whole year. If we get a hole from time to time, hey, mum can live with that. Let's just get you a new pair. So they are the socks when it comes to that whole school uniform in the midfield. Then we go to the rucks. We've got Sherry and DeConning. Very worried about not starting Max Gawn, but again, you can't have them all, and he's that older type player. Harry Boyd there at R3. Then you've got Horn Francis, McRae, Daniel, non-negotiables pretty much. Garcia, Sam Powell-Pepper, the leader at the Power. Kako is that X-Factor type player, but with great job security. Stone Davidson, and then obviously Flynn in the flex. So we're going to get Davidson on field there, and that's pretty much all that I would change up. I am finding it annoying when you don't select these emergencies. You know, that message that keeps coming up. There it goes there. Oh, now you can see my flex all of a sudden as well with Matty Flynn. So, guys, that is the team. That's how I'm going to be running into the 2025 season. There may be a few changes, a few very minor changes, as I just mentioned there with the flex and maybe with the backman and a midfielder, but I'm fairly happy with it. You're never 100% happy. I want to thank everyone that I've had some really great chats with during the off season. I want to thank everyone that's invited me onto the channel, that's come onto this channel, that signed up as a member. I haven't even given a shout out to my members. Make sure that you do contact me, guys, about getting access to that Google Members Drive. Great stuff on there, and it will be added to as the season goes along. Shout out to everyone that has purchased a season guide. Hopefully you found that really, really useful when it came to making up or creating your starting team. I know that I found it really useful, and I've been playing the game for well over 15 years now. Big shout out again to all of my brothers from the Swordplay crew. And let me tell you, in the next week, we have a major, major announcement. And I'm going to say that this is going to be absolutely game-changing. So stay tuned for that, guys. Much love. Hope that your starting team is, geez, I was going to say taking shape. It better be taking shape now, because by time of upload, we will be one day away from the start of the official Supercoach season. So hope that you're well. Much love, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers, guys.